My name is Andrew Like, and I am currently the director of the Office for Black Catholics in the Archdiocese of Chicago. And been doing this about 4 years. I started in 2011. And prior to that, for 10 years, I was the coordinator of marriage ministry for the Archdiocese. I love being black. I just love the heritage of our history, and even with the challenges. I remember in my late teens, early 20s, when I was angry with the church. You know, coming out of my childhood, the church was my refuge, but experiencing what I perceived as lack of engagement around civil rights and some personal experiences I had with racism in the church, I left angry and tried my best to be anything but Catholic. But I also went to a high school seminary, Quigley South. And this was 1966 when I entered Quigley South. And what I found difficult there was just the racism that pervaded our city, especially on the south side. It was highly racist, systemic and institutional racism, that good people can participate in evil structures. The name of the school team was the Rebels, and the insignia was the Confederate flag. And as a young freshman, and really wanting to fit in, that was unsettling. I'm thinking, I can't do that. I will not wave a Confederate flag. I will not shout, "Go Rebels." I just won't do that.
My name is C. Vanessa White. I'm Assistant Professor of Spirituality and Ministry and the Director of the Augustus Tolton Pastoral Ministry Program at Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. So part of being Black Catholic is that connecting of our experiences. And so when people say, Christianity is a white man's religion, I can say, oh, I don't think so. You can go back to the Bible and see from its beginnings, that Christianity was rooted in the African experience.
My name is Bishop Joseph Perry, Auxiliary Bishop of Chicago. In my own education and training, I've been able to sift through the filters through which the faith comes. It always comes through a filter. It always comes through a cultural lens, so to speak. Whether an African is speaking of the religion, a European or an Asian or whatever, there is no non-filtered experience of Christianity. African Americans account for about 1% of Catholics in this country, so it is small. Our identity and our history was snatched away from us. Our early religions were snatched away from the slaves and so forth. So trying to find or to reason to our dignity, our identity, we try to find Jesus affirming us, the Christian experience affirming us by seeing us in black hues. Or the early missionaries were European, so they gave us their own image of God and Jesus and the saints as they saw them, which were white European. It's almost like baking a cake. You have a list of ingredients, you see, and you and someone else is using the same ingredients, which is the Catholic faith. But how that cake turns out will be subtly different between you and someone else, because you working those ingredients, there might be a little subtle nuance to how that cake turns out as opposed to someone else. You follow?
Father Augustus Tolton was born in the 1850s, a slave in Missouri. And that's when, even though Missouri is a northern state, it was one of those northern states that had slaves. And it wasn't the Mason-Dixon line that separated slavery from freedom, but in this case it was the Mississippi River. And his mother, Martha Jane, led a heroic escape with her 3 children across the Mississippi River into Quincy, Illinois. And they were aided by the Underground Railroad. And just backtrack a little bit too, that the family that owned them were a Catholic family. And so he was Catholic. He was baptized a Catholic. His mother and father were married. He had escaped prior to the rest of the family escaping, and had joined the Union Army to fight in the Civil War. But on this escape by Martha Jane and her 3 children into Quincy, they were aided also by the Franciscan Order of the Sacred Heart. It's the first acknowledged African American priest.
He was born in 1854. He died in 1897. He died when he was 43 years old. He was born into the institution of slavery.
He had proven himself to be quite bright and aspired a vocation for the priesthood. But there was no seminary in the United States that would take him. Not even the Franciscans, who were his sponsors, could take him. So he wound up having to go to Rome to become a priest. So he went to Rome and studied there, and with the expectation that after his ordination, he would be sent to Africa, serving in the missions. But it was decided that he would come back to the United States, right there to Quincy, and serve.
A particularly rich Catholic was Mother Catherine Drexel. Now she's St. Catherine Drexel, who was the foundress of the Blessed Sacrament Sisters. She gave him a lump sum of money. He was able to begin building this church, St. Monica's. Now, St. Monica, historically, is the mother of St. Augustine. And so this church was named St. Monica's. It was partially built, and then one day, he was coming back from a priestly retreat, got off the train over on 35th, right over where the Meyer Center is, was getting off the train, walking home, and he only got a few blocks and collapsed. It was the hottest day of the year. It was July 9th, I believe, 1897. Hottest day of the year. And they found him, took him to Mercy Hospital, where he died.
He dealt with adversity, great adversity, throughout his life. That becoming a priest didn't open the doors to a life of ease at all. That in fact, it was a life of suffering on his part.
Now, you know that had to have been hard for him, because there was racism. There were people who did not even believe that black people were fully human. In the midst of many challenges, Father Tolton persevered. And so for us today as Catholics, we can look at Father Tolton and see, here is someone who persevered when everyone told him no. But he's persevered and became a priest. And so if we look at the model of Father Tolton, who was authentically himself, was authentically Catholic and authentically black, if you are your authentic self and you're comfortable with yourself, you can bring people together.
The story of the spirituality and perseverance of Father Tolton, from the perilous run from slavery he made with his mother and siblings, to his ministry in the Archdiocese of Chicago, reveals the life of a man vested in priestly ambitions. A black priest was a novel sight for American eyes, and equally an exhilarating experience for black Catholics, to have their faith reflected by a priest of their own race. Father Augustus Tolton overcame challenges of exclusion and discrimination from the Catholic faith, which black Catholics still face today. The sainthood of Father Augustus Tolton would highlight an exemplary black man of Catholic faith, whose life experiences were reflective of the struggles of black Catholics.